in the age of AI, it's getting easier to make parody videos, including this one. This is a YouTube channel called Mr. Reagan, and they made a parody ad about Kamala Harris, and it made Gavin Newsom very angry. Here's what it sounds like.
I, Kamala Harris, am your Democrat candidate for president because Joe Biden finally exposed his senility at the debate. Thanks, Joe. I was selected because I am the ultimate diversity hire. I'm both a woman and a person of color. So if you criticize anything I say, you're both sexist and racist. I may not know the first thing about running the country, but remember, that's a good thing if you're a deep state puppet. I had 4 years under the tutelage of the ultimate deep state puppet, a wonderful mentor, Joe Biden. Joe taught me rule number one, carefully hide your total incompetence.
Really funny. Yeah, and so Gavin Newsom was worried that people would think that that was real. It sounded too close to the truth for his liking. So as a result, this week he signed what the Daily Mail is referring to as America's toughest law banning political deep fakes. It is illegal to try and tell jokes in public. For more on this, I want to bring in Eric Sell now. He's an associate counsel and Shillman legal fellow at the Center for American Liberty, and he joins us on the phone. Hello, Eric. Good to have you with us, sir.
Thanks for having me, Vince.
What did Gavin Newsom do here?
Well, he and the legislators in California are trying to kill a mosquito with a shotgun. That's what's happening here. There's this concern, obviously, of AI creating deep fakes and manipulating and misleading people into voting a certain way. But this bill does much more than that. It bans videos like the one you just played that are quite obviously satire. They're fake. It's funny that, this is core First Amendment protected speech, including, an AI generated video. It's quite obviously a parody.
Yeah.
So, these new sets of laws that the California legislature just passed and Newsom just signed are really, attempts to silence core political speech, not preventing people from being misled by AI generated videos.
Well,
if they wanted to do that, they could have, drawn these statutes much more narrowly.
So in addition to demonstrating that they're humorless scolds, what are the consequences of violating this new California law? What could happen to you if you make a video like the one we just played?
Oh, well, there's significant penalties attached to it. I mean, the Attorney General is tasked with enforcing this against social media companies, for one. I mean, the social media companies are effectively being enlisted into this regime by the state of California to be, the state's puppets to go out and root out this type of deceptive video that's on their platform. So, there's certainly that penalty, and then the individual penalties as well for violating it. It's akin to discouraging people from voting or other types of severe crimes where you're interfering with the exercise of a fundamental right. So this is serious stuff, and people who are exercising their First Amendment, speech rights by creating these videos are going to get caught up in this dragnet.
Yeah, well, and it's also consistent with something we've seen the left doing a lot in terms of just trying to criminalize mockery of the left. That's one of the big things. In fact, I remember it was the Biden administration who charged and successfully scored a conviction of and threw in jail a man called Douglas Mackey, who made parody voting memes about Hillary Clinton. He said, you can text your vote. Like, nobody thinks that. It's obvious parody. They prosecuted the guy and threw him in jail for 7 months.
Yeah, this is an extension of exactly that. And, you see this from the Biden administration. You see this from blue states and blue governors like Gavin Newsom. They really just don't like speech that they disagree with. That's what it comes down to. They think that the rest of us are all rubes and we're all going to be duped into voting the wrong way if people are allowed to exercise their First Amendment. And that's just not true. And frankly, if people don't want to vote for Kamala Harris because, someone else has exercised their First Amendment right, it's not up to the government to try and prevent that from happening. That's the system that we live in this country.
They seem to be especially annoyed by mockery. Why is that? Why is mockery the area that they seem to target so aggressively?
It's because there's so much truth to it, I think. There's that's what satire is and parody is it's kind of, playing up the caricature that is these people. And when you call them out for how ridiculous they are and you do it in a mocking way, it touches a nerve, and it touches a nerve so significantly that they turn around and pass laws to criminalize what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I think that's exactly what's going on here.
And in terms of the law and what laws already exist on the books, it strikes me that the various fraud laws would probably cover a lot of the bad uses of artificial intelligence that one could imagine, right? Because if I were to cook up some sort of AI voice with an intention to mislead someone, to pretend that voice was genuinely delivering the message that I had actually authored, but I kept that detail from my audience, doesn't that sort of hit some of the tripwires for fraud in terms of the legal statutes across the country?
I would think that it would already be prohibited by current laws on the books in California. It's unlawful, or you can be subject to civil liability if you defame someone. So if you created an AI video that was defamatory, that's already something that gives rise to legal liability in the state of California. They don't need to pass some additional law on top of that, creating these criminal penalties, especially one as broad as this one. And in addition to that, if you're talking about commercial speech and misleading people about the efficacy of a product that you're selling, for example, that's already prohibited. So if someone were to create an AI video to do that, that would also be prohibited.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard horror stories, for instance, of grandparents who are taken advantage of by the fact that some criminal got their kid's voice or their grandchildren's voice, and then they use it, they pump it into AI, they deliver a fraudulent message, help, I need money, and we've got elderly people who are falling for it. That strikes me as textbook fraud and theft.
Yeah, I mean that falls into a well-established doctrine that the Supreme Court has looked at, regarding speech integral to criminal conduct. The criminal conduct there is defrauding elderly people out of money.
Yeah.
You don't have a First Amendment right to do that just because you're using an AI-generated voice or video to do that. But what's happening here is, you're talking about satire and parody that's quite obviously that. It's not illegal. And just because, someone's using AI to make it look like Kamala Harris is saying some ridiculous thing, doesn't mean that they're engaging in an attempt to interfere with the election process. They're exercising their First Amendment rights.
Yeah, for sure. And here you have Gavin Newsom going after people who are doing obvious parody, as you point out, Eric. What is the likeliness that Democrats have an appetite to do this at the national level, not just in California?
I think you're going to see a push for this. You're going to see a push for this in Congress. I think these two bills, these two laws in California are probably going to be struck down in short order. There's already been lawsuits filed against them. They're so ridiculously overbroad, the way that these two laws are drafted, that I don't think it'll take much for a court to see these as First Amendment and 14th Amendment due process violations here. And hopefully that will indicate, or send a signal to Congress like, hey, don't do this. But of course, you're going to strike this down. It's not worth it. It's just going to be a waste of everyone's time and the federal government's money if you pass a law like this only for it to be enjoined in court. But I don't think that's going to stop, really performative members of Congress from going out and making bills that do almost the same thing.
And also, this feels like the kind of thing that is going to result in very selective prosecutions. So if you have Democrats who are trafficking in, quote, materially deceptive content, my guess is that the state of California is not going to be prosecuting them with any aggression.
Yeah, it'll be the Republicans and the conservatives and the Trump supporters. Those are the ones who are the target of this. It's not folks who are on the other side of things. And I think there's a lot of leeway here for the state of California to enforce this selectively, like you suggest. And, that's why it's so dangerous, because it's really putting the state's thumb on the scale in favor of one political party or one point of view. And that's a plain violation of the First Amendment.
Finally, I should have mentioned earlier, you are representing the YouTube creator whose video I played at the top, Mr. Reagan. What does that mean? Is Mr. Reagan in any peril here?
Well, actually, the Center for American Liberty isn't representing him. Hamilton Lincoln Law Institute is representing him, and he's in good hands with them.
Oh,
but,
good.
I do think that these two laws were enacted in large part in response to the video that he created.
Yeah.
And his story is very much up front and center in this lawsuit that was filed. So hopefully, the courts will be well aware that he's essentially targeted by these laws, and hopefully he won't be in any jeopardy while these lawsuits are pending. But one of these statutes is currently in effect. The other one doesn't take effect until January 1st. So in theory, he could be prosecuted under the one that's currently in effect.
For a video that he had already created prior to the existence of the law.
Potentially, if the video is still up on his YouTube channel, who knows? Maybe the state of California will decide it's worth going after him. Local prosecutor or whatever, whoever has the authority to bring an action against him. They may do so. Hopefully they don't, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Okay, Eric, thank you very much. Eric Sell with the Center for American Liberty, sir. Good to talk to you today.